Hello, everyone. My name is Ricky Grove, and I'm here with my pals Damien Valentine, Phil Rice. Tracy Harwood couldn't be with us today on the and now for something completely machinima podcast because she's at the Oberhausen Film Festival, which runs from April 28th through May 1st. Tracy tells me that it's the first major film festival to include program dedicated to machinima and virtual production. I wondered about that at first because there had been some other major film festivals that included machinima, but I think what she means is it's the first film festival to have a full program dedicated to it. So that's exciting. She said their focus is on avant-garde content, and she's looking forward to speaking to the contributors while she's there. I'm sure she'll give us a full report when she comes back. Tracy, we miss you. You're always an essential part of the podcast. So we hope you have a really good festival, and we'll see you soon. I thought before we jumped into the review of the first movie, we'd share a little bit of news. I was very excited this week to hear that an AI program is developed to upscale images, so that if you have a low resolution image, the AI will upscale it for you, and the results are fantastic. I've also been following a video editing AI, and I just listened to an NPR story in which I was astounded at this because I had no idea. They used an AI program to program on a particular singer's voice. Then they could use that program to have that singer sing any song they wanted in any language they wanted. And this woman who has been working on this since the early 2000s, or actually, excuse me, mid 2000s, she doesn't speak Spanish. She used her own voice, singing voice, as a database, and she had herself sing a Spanish song using the AI. It sounded exactly like her, but she doesn't speak a word of Spanish. Then she shared a Drake, a recent hit on Instagram in which somebody used Drake's voice to sing a new song that they wrote. And you couldn't tell the difference. They wrote the music, but they had Drake sing the song. Wow. And of course, the people that did the NPR article were all speculating on what the hell does this mean, you know? You could get any Judy Garland singing your new song, you know, and what does that mean for legalities and everything? And once again, we're way ahead of ourselves in terms of the ethical and legal aspects of technology. But, you know, that's been the case for so long. And I just don't know what to do about it. That's just the way it is. Have you guys heard about it?
Yeah, especially the ethical aspect in terms of, like, you know, is it right for anyone to bring another Drake song into the world? You know?
You know, I hadn't seen it from that point of view, but you're right. You're right.
You're not afraid to ask the hard questions, are you?
No. No.
Actually, Ricky, with regard to that upscaling thing, which I saw the news of as well, it's actually further along than that. There are now readily available tools for upscaling video.
Wow.
And I'm actually using one of those right now to go through my back catalog, because in the early days, my releases were like Melrose Dramatic, for example, is 640 by 480, and that's still what's up on YouTube. And it looks terrible. I mean, like if you blow it up to full screen, it's just awful. And then there was a period where everyone figured out, oh, the standard is 1280 by 720. So I've got like this series of films that I released in that. And then it's only the most recent stuff is in full HD. And of course, probably the next
4K
tier beyond that's going to be 4K, right? So yeah, and this software will take a video, and you can tweak certain parameters of how it should treat the imagery that it sees. So there's one that's specifically tuned to do well with faces, like actual real video footage of faces. There's another one that's specifically tuned for animation, so it treats surfaces a little differently. And then there's a few little parameters you can tweak. And I've been using that to upscale my old films for a project, as well as upscale all of Hugh Hancock's major work and all of Peter Rasmussen's major work.
Wow.
So that this summer, if things work out, this summer we'll be able to do those kind of special episodes we've been talking about, where we, focus just on those two filmmakers. And as part of that, I'm happy to announce we're going to be able to release, for the first time ever, proper high-res versions of
that's
all
great.
of that work. Yeah,
Obviously, you're happy with the results, right?
I am. Yeah, I am. I mean, it's better than I expected. I don't know if it's not as good as if I had remade the film in modern engines and
Of
actually
course.
rendered
Yeah.
at that engine,
Yeah.
but it's surprisingly good. And it makes Bloodspell, for example, it makes it look better than ever.
Oh, that's
it
excellent.
does a really nice job. So the one that
Yeah.
I'm using in particular is called HitPaw, HITPAW.
Yeah, I've heard of
Video
them.
enhancer. It's a little expensive. I want to say that it's a subscription. First of all, you can't just buy it outright, or it wasn't at a price that made any sense to buy outright for me. It's like $40 a month. That's very expensive if you're not doing this full time. So what I've done is I got all my films queued up that I want to do this to, including, by the way, Ricky, the entire Machiniplex collection.
Oh, that's
great. I'm gonna go through every single one of those and just upscale them as high as this thing will go.
Oh,
And I'm cramming it all into into basically a 2-month period. I'm about 3 weeks in so far. It does take some system requirements to get this done. You put it on a regular, mainly GPU. So if you put it on just a regular PC with just a standard type GPU, days for a less than 10-minute film.
Yeah.
On a higher end PC, it performs better, but it still requires quite a bit of time.
Yeah.
And basically ties up the whole PC while you're doing that. But that's something that I'm working on with a PC I've set up for it. And yeah, I'm going to basically everything I can, I'll upscale it. And we'll worry about, getting permission to re-release some of those things or whatever when the time comes.
Right.
But for now, I want to at least have those copies that I archived from Machiniplex from years ago. And then all my back catalog, all of Hugh's, all of Peter Rasmussen's, getting them up to those higher resolutions, either full HD or 4K.
That makes me so
I'm excited
happy.
to start releasing some of those soon.
Very happy to hear that.
Too. Might have to give it a shot with some of my older stuff as well, because they've got the same thing as you. It's so low resolution because that's all you could do at that time.
I'm thinking like Chronicles of Humanity with the animation setting. Damien, you'll be blown away by how good it looks. I really think you will. So yeah, it's definitely worth a try.
Yeah, fantastic. Is it in the cloud? Do you do the
No, it's a desktop app. The one that I'm using is an actual desktop app. Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Well, that's very exciting news, and thanks for sharing that. I had no idea you were working on this project. That's
I've been kind of keeping it a little quiet, but
so awesome. I can't wait to see some of those older films. Beast in particular is one that I've been wanting to see. But anyway, let's move on to our first film.
Sure.
We've got 4 excellent films this month. I'm so excited to share these films. Each month seems to get better and better. Last month was terrific. Even though I wasn't there, I watched them all because I did some of the editing on it, and they were really good. I have a kind of odd way of finding films. We're going to do my film first. I look everywhere and I stop on a film that keeps my attention. And then after 5 to 10 minutes, if I'm still watching, that most likely will be my pick, depending upon the quality and everything. So for me, and it's an entirely personal way of doing it, it's about engagement with the film. Am I engaged with it? Now, I'm a 68-year-old man with, different tastes. I tend to not like mainstream kinds of things because I've seen them also before. I like unusual and creative kinds of things. So it'll be interesting to talk about the films, at least from my point of view. This film that I chose is called After War, a short film by RG Studio. It passed the test. I started watching it, and about the time I started thinking, well, maybe this would be my pick, the movie was almost over because I was so engaged with it. Now, what makes this film interesting, because there have been thousands of Half-Life 2 machinima, some good, mostly bad. But the interesting thing about this movie is that it was a movie composed of the same shot in the same position, camera position, for every single shot. And it goes through a series of of fighting by the Combine, a rebellion by the guerrilla forces, and then a post after all of that's over. And at first you think, well, that's limiting, you know, that's going to make it hard for them to be able to tell a story. It's not. And that's the great idea. It's a great idea, and that's why it works. The music is fantastic in it. I love the way they use animals and birds in it in particular. There's a wonderful shift for each sort of section musically. There's a great theme, as if to say that man can war all he wants, but life and nature will still go on. You know, I was very impressed with the film. RG Studios appears to be a Russian group with a lot of talent and imagination. Their YouTube channel has many Half-Life 2 and Gmod machinima. So I'd urge you, viewers and listeners, to check out their YouTube channel. I'll make sure that we have a link in it in the show notes. What did you guys think of the film?
The single shot, like the single camera in one place for the entire film, that really stood out to me as such an unusual thing, and it's really fascinating to see not just what was happening, but the way the scenery changed in each shot as the conflict progressed. The buildings got more and more damaged.
Yes, yeah.
And you know, so early on, some of the Combine propaganda posters go up and they get damaged and they disappear over time as the conflict goes on. And you know, sometimes there's some moments where big things happen in the background, and that has a huge impact on the next shot. You see the aftermath of it. I thought that's a very intriguing way to tell a story, because apart from sort of shouting and things going on, there's not really any dialogue to it. So you don't get that. You don't get characters telling you the story.
Well, there's spoken words, but there's no dialogue per se. You know.
Yeah, it's more like people shouting at each other in the background rather than telling the audience the story. And you know, I think that works really well as a very unusual concept. It'd be interesting to see more like this.
Yes.
And I like the way that it goes all the way up to the post-apocalyptic time where everything's regrowing.
Yes.
Because it kind of ties in with Portal, which is at the end of Portal. I can't remember if it's Portal 1 or Portal 2, but you kind of find out you're in the same Half-Life world, but just centuries later.
Yeah.
You kind of get that element into it as well, which I thought was a nice little touch.
That was my favorite scene, is that very last post-apocalyptic, because you'd seen all of this very sort of tightly focused, and that's an interesting thing. Because of the tight focus, it makes the conflict stronger. It could be a gimmick, you know, but he didn't use it as a gimmick. They used it as something very creative. And you know, there was a tight focus on the walls coming in, and then on the post-apocalyptic, the music shift, the mood shift, and the walls are mostly broken down, and you see nature and birds and everything. It's just marvelous. Phil?
Yeah, and the way the time of day changes between shots as well. Sometimes it's daylight, sometimes it's evening because you've got kind of the reddish tint. Sometimes it's night and it's really dark, except for the
You're right.
Of gunfire.
Yeah, the lighting really stood out to me as well, Damien. And I you know, in film, there's some, you know, great examples of light being used to convey emotion. Maybe most famously, you know, like Vertigo, you know, with Hitchcock and this stark light and stuff. But that was kind of unnatural, you know, this green light that's bathing everything, or red light in the background behind a certain scene. And this, as Damien pointed out, it all appears to have a natural origin. That's just the nature of day and night, and different times of day, the light changes. And I thought they used that very effectively to first of all, you know, it's on the surface, it's a very disjointed piece. It's almost like if you weren't paying attention, it's almost just like a series of vignettes, because there's really nobody to really latch on to. There's no person to follow. But that, I think that the way that they use day and night and that lighting helped to give the consistency was time. And yeah, we're jumping a little bit in time, but there's at least a sense of almost continuity that I think contrasts nicely with the kind of broken up approach on the narrative. To really, the breaking up then becomes excuse me. The breaking up then just becomes it's helping to narrow our focus on what we should be paying attention to, as opposed to just having a 36-hour time lapse. It's a lot of nothing going on there. And this is, I don't know, in the same way that a director can use the focus and, rack focus and stuff like that to draw attention to a particular part of the screen. In this way, they used time in the way they cut it up to draw particular focus to events. So I love that. I thought the sound on this was used just masterfully.
Yep.
Yeah, you're right, Damien. There's not really any dialogue that would necessarily appear on a screenplay. It's more like the dialogue was a sound effect.
Yeah.
And did it convey some information? Yeah, I think so. I think there's pieces of information that are conveyed with it, but this wasn't somebody's monologue. It wasn't terribly important what was being said. It was more of the context in which those lines were delivered.
Yeah.
And I think the reason the sound was so important in this one to me is for that final scene, because of the contrast with this serenity, this quiet that overcomes this scene that has been up to that point very chaotic,
and brutal too. I mean, there
brutal,
are several
bombardment and murder
violence
and death and destruction.
Yeah.
And the sound just helped just amplify all of that, no pun intended. But the quiet afterward was just super effective. When I first watched it, I wasn't sure how I felt about that structure, because again, it's disjointed, and my brain tends to want to find the narrative in the traditional sense, and it's not here. It's not there. They weren't even, and it's not that they messed up. That wasn't the objective of this film.
Right.
It took me a little while to kind of accept that, and once I did, then it's like, okay, so I'm starting to, on the second watch especially, I'm seeing more things now, and it's resonating in a different way than it would be if this was following a person, or God forbid was being narrated or something to artificially give it exposition. It didn't need any of that.
No.
And this was a painting in a sense. This was not some guy's story. This is about a situation, and making, I think, a statement about exactly what Ricky said. I couldn't say it any better than that, about war in general, and that it sounds flippant to say life goes on, because it means something deeper in a movie like this, but that's essentially what the message is. Is that life, nature, life force will persist.
It's kind of like,
and it's strangely positive message coming through from a movie that is dark and brutal for most of it, and yet at the end of it, it's this sense of, okay.
It's kind of like someone had a camera as the conflict started and dropped it there in the street, and it just kept filming constantly.
Sure.
And then someone found it and put it all together. As random clips that they could use. That's the feel it has.
Yeah.
It does have that feeling.
I mean, I think that's what attracted to me about to this film, and attracts me to films in general, machinima in general. They're creative. Somebody decided to do things in a different way. And you're right, Phil, your mind, we've been film goers and film watchers for decades, and so we have a certain set of expectations, and I'm really happy that you were able to challenge your own expectation and stay with it and say, well, hey, maybe there's something more here than I thought, because you could just reject it out of hand. But that's the very thing that interested me. Now we'll see in some later films that we're going to have the direct opposite approach in terms of storytelling. So it'll be interesting to talk about it then. Well, that's our film for today. It's After War, a short film by RG Studio. I wish Tracy was here. I sort of expect she goes into great detail about doing the background and everything. I feel like maybe I've left it out.
Yeah.
So we miss you, Tracy. But that's it. If you have any comments about this film, please contact us to talk@completelymachinima.com. We also have show notes, extensive show notes at completelymachinima.com. And unless any of you have anything you'd like to say at the end here? No? All right. Well, that's it. Stay with us. May is going to be a great month for Machinima. We'll be back next week with Phil's choice, which is a really interesting one. So we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.